Welcome, everybody. It's your boy, the Versace Stoner, with another episode of VSW.
These sons will beat you.
That's right, folks. Big news flash. Oh my God! VSW.
Brass hats know what time it is. Get up off of your seats and bow down to the king.
One of the greatest in this game and one of my favorite all-time people in this game. The Versace Stoner.
It's places like this. I started in a mill. I'm here still in a mill. I consider myself a mill wrestler.
Welcome, everybody. It's your boy, the Versace Stoner. We're here with a very special episode of VSW Podcast. Tonight, we got in the house, that's right, folks, Big Boofa Dezmond Cole.
What's up?
Welcome.
Man? What's going on, y'all? This is I'm very excited for this.
Me too. You know, you were just, I have to say, you're someone that's just kind of captivated me since I first saw you. And I first saw you up in Limitless. I don't remember the match per se, but I just remember the energy of the match and the energy of the room. And since then, every match has been like that I've come to. You know, the energy that you draw. And, you know, we're going to talk about that. You know, you just wrapped up a huge matchup against Alec Price. And, I mean, it had everybody on the edge of the seats. I was there in Yarmouth, Maine, at the 8-year anniversary, and like I said, you know, it stole the show. And we're going to talk about a whole bunch of other things. This is going to be a great episode. So again, I do thank you for coming on. So tell me, what got you into wrestling?
So like what got me watching it?
Sure, let's go that. Like, did you watch it as a kid?
So I was just like flipping through the channels one day. This is why I really started like paying attention. I was about, I want to say 4 or 5 years old. I was like flipping through the channels and I just like passed by like John Cena, like screaming at the TV. He was doing like a backstage segment or something like that, and he was cutting a promo on somebody. And I was like, damn, this is pretty interesting. So I ended up just every week after that, just tuning in, just to see what this was really about. And I just like fell in love with it. Other than that, I remember my uncles are really into it, and I remember like briefly hearing like when mankind, like them talking about when mankind fell off the cell, Undertaker threw him. I was so young, but when I really started paying attention is when that happened. Is when I saw Cena on the screen.
That's great. You know, I love you know, I have a lot of, you know, different wrestlers on the show, and they've all started at different points in, you know, and I say pro wrestling history, WWE history. You know, some have started, you know, when they, you know, they saw, you know, the territory days, others, you know, Hogan, others, you know, Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, Stone Cold, the Attitude Era, you know, Ruthless Aggression. It's great to seeing how these different eras play, because I think that it brings a certain kind of characteristic to the characters that people portray when they get in the ring, depending on how they watch WWE. Like, going back, if you, like, you know, when I grew into it, you know, I remember being probably around that same age, maybe a little bit younger. I don't know. I remember flicking through TV and seeing something with, believe it or not, it's stuck in my head. It's Liberace dancing, and it has to be from WrestleMania 1. But I think it was like a replay of that segment on WrestleMania 2 or 3. Because I remember seeing, like, I think it's 2, because I remember seeing King Kong Bundy, and I remember seeing kind of like bits and pieces of that. I was really young. But, you know, growing up, I grew in, you know, with the Hulk Hogan era. And, you know, he was the dude, and everybody wanted to be him, you know. And it stemmed from that, a whole bunch of just wrestlers that just played their super baby face. Really safe, really, you know, just worked on, you know, just being big, power, a couple power moves, and then, you know, just working that, you know, well, you love me. That's why it doesn't matter really what I do. And then, you got, I grew into it as I got older, that kind of era, it obviously declined. And, the next era, was kind of that funky era. I call it the funky era because, you had all these cartoon characters. I mean, you had people like, Doink the Clown, you had people like Max Moon, you had these weird characters coming out. Almost anything you could think of became a wrestler. I remember the MLB was on strike and they had somebody playing, baseball guy. And then you had, what I call is, the Attitude Era, but that's why I feel like, I get most of my, people that come in from my podcast, and most of them come in, watching, I grew up watching Stone Cold, on TV, and I just, I had to be a part of that kind of show. And, when you think of that, you think of those era, then it transfers right into that, John Cena era. And, these are, and at the time, it might not have seemed that way. But looking back, because being a kid, everything is larger. So, thinking back, these early WrestleManias seemed so much bigger because the excitement was there. You really weren't paying attention to, the details of the crowd of viewage. And later on, you kind of maybe seeing it dwindle just because, your friends might have went this way. Other people might have went that way. So, not a lot of people are watching wrestling when you get into 17, 18-year-old territory. Some are, definitely. But in high school for us, it was like this mixed bag. The kids that we used to grow up, in elementary and middle school with, some of them still kept. Others just, were like, nah, that's fake now. I don't want to talk about that. You're whatever. So, no, you had all of this, with us. But looking back, these are monumental eras in wrestling. The Attitude Era and the Ruthless Aggression Era, just for drawing in numbers, drawing in this new fan base that, like you said, you're flicking through the TV and it wasn't even a match that got you into it. It was a promo.
Yeah.
That's got to be one hell of a promo to hook you.
Yeah, it definitely was. Ruthless Aggression Era was like my favorite era. Like I still to this day like watch so much stuff back from it. Like I just love it so much.
And it's funny because it's the one era, like I said, like, I grew into it, and growing into this right age, I was in the Attitude Era, and Ruthless Aggression era kind of hit, and I was like early 20s, and I was like, life just kind of happened. So it's like, we'd, flick it through, and obviously, we loved watching, like, the bigger pay-per-views, and we'd watch, John Cena, and I remember, really falling in love at that point with Rey Mysterio Jr. Even though I liked him in WCW, I really appreciated him more in WWE. Just seeing him more of him. Growing up, I didn't really watch a lot of WCW. I flicked through it during the the wars, but again, it's something that I kind of went back and watched as I got older, and I learned to appreciate because it's a whole different style of wrestling. You got southern kind of territories, but like I said, it's just great to see, what, and it always asks me, what pulls people in. I've talked to people that had never watched it as a kid, never watched it as an adult.
No, it's been my life.
But they just, they like that. They like the athleticism. They like, the contact. They like also this part of being, if you're like the acting, I would say, just that theater kind of, showmanship. They like that aspect of it. And it's like, wow, that's cool too. Because, you would think, almost everybody I talk to will say, I grew up with this and this is my favorite wrestler. They can start naming names and favorite matches and, most of this lifelong fans. But then you do get that small percentage that's like brand new to the scene. It's like, wow. But okay, so, you're a kid, you're watching on TV, you see this John Cena promo and, it's got you hooked. You're tuning in every week, and I know how that is. WWE. They're great at really captivating. So now you get to a certain age, and what do you start looking at? Schools? Do you start talking? How do you pursue that? How do you say I'm going to now get into this?
So my story is kind of crazy. So I didn't think you could become a wrestler. I don't know. I just like never knew, I just never knew that it could be like possible when I was younger. So I never really like as much as I wanted to be a wrestler, I wanted to be on TV. I always thought it was like a pipe dream. So I wanted to I was a competitive break dancer and hip hop dancer for like 10 years. So I ended up doing that, ended up traveling, doing battles and stuff like that. I played, sports in schools, but when I got to high school, uh not so much like middle school, I still kind of like had the dream wanting to be a wrestler. But then like once I got to high school, I was like, oh, I don't really know if it would be able to work for me. So I kind of like weeded it out until senior year. It came back to me again. And like I started like seeing, you know, these schools that were out at the time, but I still kind of was like, you know what, nah, I'm just gonna do like my own thing. And it winded up finding me about 2 months after I graduated high school. I winded up like my best friend, his brother, like we were just kidding around. We wanted to film a skit for a video, and we wanted to film a skit like for like a wrestling video. And I was like, damn, I was like, we kind of need like a ring. And my best friend's brother was like, oh, I know somebody that has a ring. And I was like, oh, damn, cool. So we went and I stood in the ring for the first time and I was like, shit, man. I was like, this is awesome. And then after that, the gear started turning and I winded up starting to train like for, I started training and then I found myself like starting to give up on everything else. I was like, you know what? Nah, I want to do this. So then I found like a real school. I started training with Kono Capuccia. That's my trainer. And I have not looked back since. And yeah, I fell in love with it even more. And even like I spent years kind of under the radar until about 2000, 2021 is when I started to get known a little bit, but then I got injured, so it got cut down from me. And then when I came back, I started debuting with all these companies, and it just I don't know, it was like kind of like a miracle. And I would say like between the end of 2021 and now is when I have became the most known, which is awesome.
That's great. It's great that you actually pursued that and was able to it's weird this hearing that, like I said again, the generational kind of gap in wrestling. When I was, the age to kind of train, I tried to get into a school and I was turned away just because of my height and size. And they're like, nobody's gonna use a 5'8" person anywhere. This don't even bother training. And I'm like, okay, cool, I get it. And you just kind of accept that. Now, you flash forward, 15, 20 years. Wrestling is so much more inclusive. It's like, you can do this, you can do that, you can do almost anything.
I was never a fan of that stigma. Like I used to be told that stuff. Like I'm 5'9". Like I used to be told the same thing, and I would always just it would like fire me up even more. Like it's been said to me when I first started, and I just don't even let it bother me anymore because it's nothing I could do about it. I could just be me.
Well, yeah, but I mean, this was coming from, Killer Kowalski himself. The dude ran the school in Malden. He's from a whole different generation wrestler where you had to look the part 24/7. You had to, be this big, grotesque, monster in the ring. And, seeing me just walk in, it just wasn't happening. So I ended up, pursuing like amateur boxing and got into some other stuff like that. And then I kind of swung back around into wrestling later on. And I did some day session trainings, some other things, and just, I've had some fun in the ring, but no really school training. But, like I said, it's just like I said, great, you get to kind of pursue that. It's funny how it kind of happened. You really weren't kind of planning, kind of just doing something, for some other purpose, filming or what it be. And that's kind of what brings a lot of people, I feel, can bring to wrestling. It doesn't have to just be the wrestler. There's so much that's offered in the world of wrestling, whether it be filming, whether it be photography, whether it be podcasting, whether it be interviewing, whether whatever it might be. There's a lot of just small details for anybody can, if they really want to pursue it, can get into the business, at least on the independent level. I'm not promising anybody that can get into WWE, but if you want to, really get into, wrestling and be part of the indie scene, it's very plausible. It's very easy to get. It's not easy, but it's doable. And all the assets and tools are there, especially in the New England area. Now, you said you went to training school. What state?
New York.
So you're from the New York area.
I am from New York. Yeah.
You're probably the only person in the Maine likes from New York, I have to say.
Yes. Well, I honestly, I don't really like say where I'm from. When I come out, I'm always built from straight out the gate. So, yeah, I'm from Long Island, New York, though.
That's awesome, though. And I'm only asking because I honestly didn't know. Because you don't really, a lot of the people that I have seen come from New York kind of do push it in there, in their either entrance and their gear. I've seen people come out Yankee gear and this and that. And depending on the character, they'll even, use it against us, Boston folks. But, so yeah, but New York is a very rich wrestling area again. You got that. I consider that part of New England wrestling. New York, Connecticut, New Jersey, Maine, Mass, Rhode Island. That whole stretch. Just such a vast, amount of promotions, talent. Back in 21, I went all over the place. I went, all the way out to Jersey, H2O Center. I went.
Wow.
That was a wild time. We did the IWTV 100, and it was like a good 6-7 hour ride up there. And we went early on. It was either, I think the show was on a Saturday or a Sunday. I don't really honestly remember now. If it was, we went early the day before though, because I caught it. I wanted to catch a VXS show. I never caught one, so I went out there the night before, and we did a lot of traveling. I went out also to New York for believe it or not, the XPW's return with that was an interesting show. I don't think they realized what the laws of extreme wrestling and the laws of New York, how they really don't collide. Because as soon as somebody bled, the officials were coming in, pulling people out. And it's like you got these deathmatch fighters like Schlack in there, and they're ripping each other off because someone's bleeding and the match is over. And the fans aren't having it. They're expecting the original kind of deathmatch, blood and gore that you had at the beginning of the 2000s, and it just wasn't happening. Not at that New York venue, anyways. But we've been, like I said, all over, and I think that's around the time. I might have probably caught glimpse of you. Like I said, I remember it in Maine. I remember seeing the posters and stuff, and I remember Randy posting stuff and Limitless posting stuff. I don't remember the exact show though, just because there was so many. But remember, like I said, being in the fans and just being like, your match came out and just all of a sudden you just got this pop, and it was just like, wow. And I had never seen you personally wrestle before. I never watched you on TV before. But even that night, I was screaming, "Boofa, boofa." I just got into it like it was just like automatic. And from that point on, just watching you wrestle, it's very exciting, like I said, and just just like I said, the energy. It's very hard to describe and for me to put into words, because I guess you have to be there. You have to be at a live show to kind of experience that. I don't know if you coming out noticing it, but the energy that you give off and then the energy that the fans pick up and give back is just, there's tremendous force.
It's crazy. It still puts me on cloud nine because sometimes I have a really big problem not being in my own shoes, so I don't realize what I'm doing, like and I don't realize sometimes I like to just love the journey that I'm on, and I always feel like sometimes I'm on go 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 go. So I don't know, when I get this reception every time that I can get, it is just. It's so heartwarming to me. Like, I don't know. There's nothing that I can't really put into words what it feels like, but it's just, it's great. I'm grateful for it.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's just something else. It's something that you don't, Yeah, I mean, you champions and other people, yeah, you get your pop, but I mean, you bring just something, like I said, something different to the table. And now, like you said, you went all over these promotions. You've been on IWTV, other, shows. So now you're on, a platform, kind of, going back to, your earlier dream, watching somebody on TV. Now it's people watching you on TV, going, oh wow, your main eventing shows, closing the doors at night. That's gotta it's got to be kind of like a dream come true at that point. Even though, I mean, it's not, like I said, it's not John Cena, but for what it is.
It's crazy. I every year I always tell myself like, let's up the ante this year. Let's see what we can do this year. And I don't know, main eventing the Limitless show on Saturday was just awesome. I don't know.
We are going to talk a little bit about that in a little bit. So now, I mean, I still know. So, do you obviously you continue to still train? You train like on a weekly basis.
Yeah, a lot. My trainer opened up like his own building, and it's 12 minutes away from my house. And I got a key, so I can go 24/7 whenever I want. And actually, I'll do a little shout out. It's the Remarkable Wrestling School. They got a page and everything. You can look them up at Remarkable Wrestling School or Remarkable Wrestling. But yeah, the classes run from Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays. I can't really make the Thursdays a lot because I'm usually doing like Wrestling Open. But Sundays is up in the air because I don't know. I never know if I'm like doing, if I'm booked or whatever. But Tuesdays, I am always there, and like every other day, like on a Monday, a Wednesday, whatever, like whatever time I want to go, I go. I'm not a big believer in, if you start catching a buzz, stop training and stuff because that's just not going to do anything good for you. So I'm always training.
No, and that's a great way to be. I was kind of the same way as amateur boxing. I didn't have that much access, but I was close by, and I just kind of soaked up as much time as I would go. I'd spend whole days there, just hitting the bag, working, whatever. Then take a little break, but I would still be in the building, watching others, soaking other information. Then when I feel a little bit more energy, hitting it again, doing it all over. Then going to the team trainings, doing all that, and you soak all that in, but it gives you almost almost a new sense of accomplishment too. It's not just you're getting the matches. Now you're also you're putting in this work, and you're seeing the results of the work. If you go back and watch your tapes, if you watch your matches, things start looking cleaner. Things start looking more crisp. Everything starts looking a little bit better. And it's like, wow, this is really paying off. And the more time you put in, the more it's gonna pay off. And like any other school, you never can stop learning. There's always something new to learn, even in wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
There's always new moves to be learned. Not everybody knows every single move perfectly to be able to do. If they did, they would have endless move lists. We'd have 2-hour matches. But bringing in new moves, it's not just as easy as, oh, let me try this. You have to look good doing it. You have to know how to do it. You have to know how to take it. You know how to take the reversal. There's so much into it that you have to do. It's not just like, oh, I'm going to bring this into my, arsenal this week and we're just going to wing it.
Yeah, that's how an accident happens.
And I hate to see it. And you see it with just, the greatest of professional wrestlers sometimes happen. It's nobody's fault. It's a very dangerous sport. I don't think a lot of people understand. They see the humor side of wrestling. They see, the over exaggeration of things. They see the wild promos. They see, these hardcore stunts and, like you said, like Mick Foley jumping off a cage and, oh my God. But, those aren't the things that's going to hurt you, landing the wrong way, just, a little bit this off on your back. That's what's going to, paralyze you. Not being limber enough in certain moves, that's what's going to break a bone. It's such the small things in pro wrestling that's like, oh, and it's not even some of the things, it's not even like cautiously thought about. It's just, we're accidental.
100% agree. That's how I tore my ACL, MCL, and meniscus on the most basic thing ever. So
Now, I want to think about the timing thing. So, what year would you say you started actually physically training in the school?
I I started training at I'm not gonna name the place because I'm not too fond of the person who runs
Oh,
it.
that's fine. I only bring
I
positivity and so. But
uh
it was a legit training place, you're saying.
yeah, it was legit training place though. August 13th, 2017 was my first like day of training.
Day of training. And then when would you say you debuted on like any show that was in front of fans?
I had my first match like probably this is so bad, but probably like 3 months in training. Like I think or maybe like 2.5 because my first match was in like October of 2017. Like my first match in front of a crowd. And it actually did not go that bad. So it was pretty fun. Very very memorable. But that was like my first match in front of like a crowd, like in 2017 October.
Very good, very good. The reason I'm asking that is because like I always kind of ask wrestlers this is because it kind of happened and it changed things. So you were already wrestling in 2020. How did the pandemic impact you? I know you're from New York, so you kind of got hit like Mass did, shut down.
I'm gonna be honest. I kind of speak for myself here. I think the pandemic helped me because it. I started gaining a lot of weight, and by this is before pandemic happened. I was the biggest I ever was at, and I was 235, and I was still jumping around and just terrible moving around with that much weight on you. It is not fun, especially when you're only 5'9". It's all you're compacted. Um, so yeah, I just didn't pull it off well, and I just didn't look good. So the pandemic happened, and I remember being in my room and just like, oh, there's nothing to do. So I would just order food all the time. And then that was like probably the first month of the pandemic. And then I realized, I said, you know, if I really, really, really love wrestling, if I really love it and I believe in myself, I have to stop. Like I take this shit more seriously. So I remember talking to my buddy Percy Ryan, if you know him, but I wind up just being like, "Yo, let's change, let's do something," and we winded up starting P90X during the pandemic. And I will say that I stuck so strict with that. I lost so much weight. I winded up from 235 getting down to 195, and I just it was a crazy time in my life. It opened up what fitness was like to me, and I started feeling really confident and good about myself. And then I got into really good shape, and I started, some shows would start opening up, and I was on the road, with my boys, above the rest. And Tristan was like, "Yo, like, why don't you try being yourself? Like, why don't you try to be yourself?" Because I was battling with this thing where I always had to be a serious guy, and I was nervous for people to see who I really was. So I always hid it. And we're on the road, and I was like, I don't know, I got to do something different. I said, I got to do something that people start like, I start paying more attention to me. Uh, and he's just like, yo, like whatever, be yourself. And to backtrack a little bit, like me and my friends would joke around during pandemic, and like when I would like hit them whatever, I would always go boof boof whatever, stuff like that. And my friend one day was like, yo, like there's no you I dare you to call yourself that, like I dare you to call yourself that in wrestling. I was just like, all right, word, whatever. So then fast forward, I get to this venue, and I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna try something new today. So I tell the announcer, I'm like, hey, um, call me the Big Boofa Dezmond Cole. I was like, call me that. And he was like, what is that? But he did it. He did it. And honestly, it is the most outrageous nickname, but it just works for me so much. And I don't know. I wouldn't go back and change a thing of how my story has gotten me here.
No, I mean that's amazing, and like I said, like I always ask that because the pandemic has hit so many people so many different ways. For instance, fans, a lot of them got stuck in a depression. That weekend that it hit, was close to Mania. A lot of indie wrestlers lost their bookings, which was terrible. A lot of people, that relied on this extra income lost that. So I mean, it was this big whammy of just, especially in Mass, where everything was just, like I said, totally shut down unless you were an essential worker. Wrestling wasn't essential here in Mass. We weren't like Florida. So but it did something, and like you said, it allowed people to get some time, some breathing space. It kind of gave people like myself who wanted always, I had this idea of running a podcast, to have time. I didn't have all these shows every weekend. I wasn't running around going to wrestling. I actually had time to sit down and process what I was watching and kind of go back and critique it a little bit. And I was like, now I got time to, put this podcast together. And, I always wanted to do VSW. I always wanted to put something together where it got, more eyes and ears on the independent scene. Because sometimes it just doesn't get it, no matter how good the wrestling is, no matter how good the promotion is. Sometimes the people just don't get out there or just don't see it or just don't know about it. You can have some of the greatest matches, but if no one's seeing it and knowing about it, it's kind of like, And, independent wrestling for me is something very special because here in New England, we're very blessed. We see people one day in these small halls, but the next day, they're on TV too. They're in AEW, they're in WWE. You got people like Anthony Green, Danny Garcia, great names that have just, skyrocketed right to the top, and they've all come out of little VFW halls, and that's just the beauty of it here, at least for me, to see that and see the transformation, see people grow and get better. And that's what the pandemic also kind of did for some of the other wrestling. I got to see them kind of grow on their character, and they were doing these great character work skits, online, and just really getting into it. And then the shows started coming back, but in a way that was even more for me personally. I know a lot of people hate it, and I know the promoters don't like it. It's a pain in the ass, but the tapings for me was great because it again gave time. It was a weekly episode, especially like Limitless The Road and Beyond had their show going on. I believe it was Masterclass. And then NCW came out with a show, and Chaotic started running the show. So you had all these shows coming out, but it gave it a way that it was a weekly show that you could process it. You could, it only had a couple of matches on it, 3 or 4. It wasn't, a full card, and you could kind of view it and talk about it. And that even, set us up even more to get more involved in the indie scene, because now the wrestlers were kind of still home from work, and they were able to interact in a whole new way when these episodes did debut. Some of them were in the chat room, some of them were jumping in and out, and that gave, a sense of, oh wow, we're really close to the action now. And when indie wrestling came back in 21, it was just like bam. That's what I'm saying. I came out personally, exploded out, and just went every which way I could go, from Jersey, New York, Rhode Island, Mass, Maine. I was dying to get out to Limitless Wrestling. I had tickets to that Chris Statlander versus Anthony Green title match, and then all of a sudden, it was going to be my first Limitless show, and the pandemic happened. The refunds were all given back. It just wasn't happening. I was, and I remember going back to my first Limitless show when it did come back, and it was just like, wow, this is great, And it's just like I said, it's just one of the promotions for me personally. It's just been like something I call home, because when I go in there, it doesn't feel like I'm in like a strange venue. I feel like everybody is interconnected in some which way, whether it be through the wrestling, the wrestlers, the fandom of the wrestlers. Everybody was in unison. The other night, Screaming Boofa, like I said, you closed the show. You had one of the greatest matches, I would say, this year on probably IWTV, and that was against the Tri-City OG, a former champion, and if I'm correct, isn't he like IWTV champion now too?
Yep,
exactly. And he's another kid that really came swinging out of the pandemic. I remember watching him on Pandemic in the Dojo, and he was doing these like little skits and stuff, and he was just starting to get into it. And man, did he blow up as well.
Yeah.
And a lot of those people did. Becca is another one I can name. She came out swinging out of 2020 and just really blew her character out the water. And it's great. Everybody kind of on these platforms. You can catch them. Thursday nights on Beyond Wrestling's Wrestling Open. You can catch them on Limitless Wrestling. You catch them in other promotions across the area. But you two, you went head to head, and my God, it was a devastating match. I mean, it was everything under the sun used, chokeholds. It went back and forth too. I mean, what was it like for you?
It was grueling. I will say that. I've never done a last man standing match before, and it's so crazy because like in the same month I had also a first time ever I Quit match, so it was just a crazy month for me. And to cap it off with a last man standing, I was like extremely nervous, but I don't know, man. It felt really good. It sounded, what a weird business we're in where, stuff like that we can just look back on and be like, yeah, that was awesome, which it was also really painful. So
Yeah, it looked painful. There was, like I said, trash barrels used and all sorts of weapons. A last standing match, and you just said I Quit match. Very grueling ways of having to win that match, or a grueling way to have to lose that match. Either you're going to be knocked out and not getting up, but you have to say I quit. This is going to be in some serious pain, and we all know the pro wrestlers got such a threshold for pain. They can really take a lot. You see them getting beat up for half an hour before anybody even thinks about tapping. So to get someone to that point, the pain's going to be surreal. And you've seen some. I've seen some pretty devastating. Hold. I remember Bob Backlund used to have this devastating cross-faced chicken wing. You would just snap and throw it on people, and they would just be in the ring all like out. But I was always been a fan of kind of the submission moves myself, because it is kind of a different way of winning. Yeah, the pin is cool, but you can kind of sneak the pin. You can kind of tuck and roll the pin. You kind of distract him and pin. To do the submission and to make your opponent actually I quit or tap their hands in pain, you have to get close. You have to get real close, and you have to be able to lock the move properly and really secure it in and really take it home and dedicate it. But you guys went the whole distance on that, and then like I said, it could have went either way in that match. I was on the edge of my seat. My friends that I brought with me were on my edge of my seat. I brought a friend. He used to be part of the pro wrestling scene back in the early 2000s, and he took some time off, injury and such, kind of getting back into training now. But he'd never been to a Limitless, so I brought him out to that. That was his first show, and he was just in awe. He actually says it's your match that got him hooked. We're going to be trying to secure front row seats tomorrow night for Fresh Blood, because
I'll be there.
That's looking already to be just an insane card. They're announcing superstars already, Warhorse, and they're just throwing names out there, but again, that last event, you actually got on the mic at the end, and you got to speak some words, and I believe that was, you said it might have been your first time. I think that was the first time in front of the main crowd you did speak.
That was it. Was my first live mic, like in Limitless, since. Since never. I never had one. So
but
that
was you had everybody's attention, and you had everybody's respect. It was pretty awesome. Like I said, a great way to close a great show, and just showing 8 years of excellence. And I say that they started off with such great high names. You had MJF as first champion. It's just Limitless has always just been something just great in the world of indie wrestling. It brought something to the North that just wasn't there prior. We've always had high ender wrestling in the in this area we've had things like Chaotic and back in the day. They brought in, Sasha Banks, and they had all these New England Pro Wrestling Academy, brought in all these, great talents. And you have Beyond, they've always had these high-end names. But there was nothing ever really up north. And, Randy Carver kind of brought that to that scene, and it just exploded out there. And, looking back 8 years ago, I was like, wow, they were showing things. And I went back in history and watched some of the old events. Because I wasn't out there the first year. As I said, I watched stuff, but I didn't actually physically get out there until 21. Everything else was actually DVDs. I still buy the DVDs. I like DVDs.
Oh yeah, me too. I love collecting those.
I like the especially like from the indie most. I like to grab like the physical media just because sometimes I don't want to have to. Sometimes no, hard to say, but sometimes I don't want to be subscribed to IWTV to watch this one match. If I just feel like watching one match, so I like having like also a hard copy of a lot of indie stuff, especially if I have to like go through something for an interview or go through something. It's easier for me to pull a disc and for me to kind of like go through the TV and try to find it. And enough and nothing. Sometimes IWTV can be super buggy through the TV. It just like boot me out for no reason. I don't know what it is, but yeah, I love the physical media though, and I always try to collect that and grab it at shows that I can. And Limitless is one of the ones that I see it all the time because they have these big tables just filled with DVDs, and they still make new ones, which is nice, especially for the collectors. But yeah, I threw it out there the other day. After that match, granted, AC called dibs on Channing Thomas, but I mean, I kind of think you should be looked at too. I mean, you just took out a former champion.
I mean, taking out a former champion and also literally being like within a hairline of winning the VLC, but then it just got all messy towards the end. And I mean, everyone knows the beef I have with Channing Thomas. And it's kind of crazy. So this is also kind of insane. At Fresh Blood last year, I in 14 seconds beat Channing Thomas. So if that even also doesn't say anything, like who says I can't do that again? Which would be a crazy upset for a new world champ.
It would be, and I think it was kind of a great upset for Rip Bison too when kind of Channing Thomas beat him. I'll be quite honest. I haven't always been a fan of Channing Thomas. I've known him in the world of wrestling for quite a while. I used to see him, in NCW and other promotions, and I have to say I wasn't too much of a fan of him until he aligned with one of my just all-time favorite managers, former WWF Hall of Famer Sidney Bacabella. I mean, this guy is great. He's gold. Anything he touches is gold. And he turned Channing into a whole new man.
Oh no, he did. He did. No, he is. He's a hidden gem, like a gold mine, and he knows what he's saying. Like I will give him that. He's very smart with this business and what he.
Yeah. Well, I mean, coming from Texas, working with the Von Erichs, working his way through, Green and all these people coming up here into this territory, working with, Vince Sr., working with, WWF, then getting booted, and then coming, I've seen him in Chikara, I've seen him in Beyond, I've seen him all throughout, and now, taking all that knowledge and just installing it into, Channing Thomas, it's turned Channing Thomas into almost super Channing Thomas, world class is, almost too small for it. I have to say he's really, another superstar that's really kind of just grown to be really good. And I think, you and him are going to have a different match than last time. I don't think it will be 14 seconds. I'm not saying the outcome won't be the same.
I mean, we also did wrestle a couple months ago as well. That also didn't end too. I mean, that didn't end too good for me, but because Sydney got involved. But I would love to do it again with this man, so we could really settle the score.
Well, and that's what I think. It's gonna have to happen. I mean, like I said, I get it. AC comes in there, and AC, He's got all the respect. He's from Saco, he's everybody's favorite. But does he really deserve that shot, in my opinion? I mean, I don't know. It just, like I said, you got all the steam right now. You just had, you closed the show, first of all. Second of all, you took out a former champion. You took out a current IWTV champion on IWTV. Granted, that title wasn't on the line, but had it been, you would have been walking out as, the new IWTV champion. You have beaten the current champion prior. So, I mean, that does count for points. And the reason I say it's not going to be the same match is because I think, as you've gotten better, I mean, obviously the competition has gotten better. And, he is somebody that I do watch in the world of wrestling, and he has gotten better. He's gotten really good. I was shocked to see him kind of pull that feat off, to be honest, though. It is a lot to take home the VLC. That's a big night. And then to actually, take the title at the same time, it's just like, it's
crazy.
like winning, it's like winning the Rumble, then winning, and then fighting, the champion, grabbing that Money in the Bank, and then, challenging right after. It's wild. But, again, you're hungry for it. The fans are hungry for you to get that opportunity for it. Everybody was in unison screaming your name. The fans in Maine, like you said, you might be from New York, but to them, you're just as local as, AC Romero. They love you out there. I haven't heard one bad thing. I never hear, no matter who you wrestle, I've never heard anybody cheer for your opponent once.
I mean, I don't know. The fans in Maine are just awesome. I don't know, they're like family to me. Limitless has truly become a home away from home. When I'm out there, I feel so different. Like, it's actually crazy how I feel like almost invincible. Knock on wood, but I really do.
And it must be just kind of great, now being on these platforms and being on TV to kind of, it shines light back on, where you did train your school and, your trainer and how good you are doing. And that shows, that shows to him, well, that's one of my students right there. He's, going to the next level, and he's taking things to the next level.
I appreciate him. He's trained me, Gabe Sky, Tristan Ty, like, he's trained a lot of us. And, he never, ever, ever takes, tries to, how do I put this? Like, he never tries to use our names for anything. He's very grateful. And I don't know, if it wasn't for him, I don't know. I wouldn't be in the position I'm in. He's helped me so much with so much stuff. And
it's funny you said, because that's my second favorite match of the night, was the tag team match. Above the rest, and MSP just really, they killed it out there. And, I'm a big tag team wrestling fan as well. And, to see that, kind of, growing up with big tag teams like, the Rockets, Heart Foundation, all that, to see that kind of excitement and brought back in onto the indie scene, it just always warms me, because sometimes that the art of tag team gets lost on the indie scene. Everything becomes individualized, or people don't want to see tag matches. They just want to see, four-way matches, or, every man for themselves matches, or some other kind of wild match. And the art of tag teams kind of get lost. But to see, dedicated tag teams, and also the other thing is, they're not just like makeshift tag teams. They're actually, real tag teams. And that's something that kind of always irked me. Just even in like TV wrestling, is this makeshift tag team. If you're going to be a tag team, that's great. But, have matching gear, have something that, unifies you, and go out there and do it. Don't just be, I'm here and there, and they're walking out separately. I love seeing, just great tag team wrestling, and that's what they brought in. And, you could tell, again, excellent match, and again, speaks, words to the trainer. And just to see all you guys just coming, all the way out here and doing your thing. And again, you're not from there, and you just doing it with excellence. And, you have gotten, like you said, you got the fans behind you, and it has become like a family for you. And I think a lot of people, they do love you, like, one of their own wrestlers that would be, from like originally Limitless, or, from the dojo, or, whatever it may be. And that's just, like I said, it's something special. It's not something you see every day. I've seen a lot of people come up there. Yes, they get warm ovations, but nothing compares to what I've seen you get. And the amount of momentum. And with that, what's your plans for the future in this industry? What are your goals? What do you want to, aspire for? Obviously, you want to take out Shannon Thomas. You want that Limitless strap, but what else?
I really do want to enjoy the journey. Of course, I mean, a lot of people say this, but I really do want to be signed. But there is unfinished business before I get there. But I would, that is the number one thing on my radar as well, is just getting a contract and being able to show the world nationwide how unique I really can be.
That's awesome. That is great. I hope it's somebody that lets you keep your name, though. I hope you don't lose your name. That would be a shame.
Yeah. Yeah.
That would be the one downfall of getting signed, if they make you change your name. But I have to say, this has been a great pleasure for me, and we're just gonna keep watching you excel on the indie scene. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Of course, dude. Thank you for having me. This is a very fun conversation, and it flowed super well. So I really did enjoy it.
Thank you very much. Have yourself a great night.
You too, man.
What a great interview, everybody. That was so much fun. Check them out. Big Boofa Dezmond Cole. We're going to have all the details in the link of how to find them on social media. And make sure to check out on IWTV that 8-year anniversary was dropped yesterday. Limitless. You can check out the match we were talking about. Have yourself a great night, everybody. Versace Stoner out.